Hello and welcome to another Jay's Politics podcast for the Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network. You can reach us at podcast99.org or me directly at jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at jpolypodcast. And today I have been silent for over a month now, mainly because of schoolwork and trying to make sure I'm getting my homework done and make sure all that stuff is taken care of. But I've also been kind of respecting the midterm elections. I don't want politicians to be able to get out there and speak their mind, their opinion on their stances, on their positions. The problem is we've had the Kavanaugh nomination to the Supreme Court issue going on. We've had 4 accusers by my last count say that he has been saying that he's either raped or assaulted them, that there's been traumas in their lives. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I do not try to pretend to be one. I do not try to even assess people's mental state. I can only speak from my personal experience, from my own witnessing of how people with certain mental disorders have reacted in the past around me. That is all I can do. That's all I try to do. When it comes to situations like this, where I can clearly see that this is a political ploy done by the actual Democratic Party and then counterploys done by the Republican Party, I get disgusted. I don't generally want to talk about these things. I don't want to deal with those situations because to me, it's just stupid. It's not worth wasting my energy talking about it. Now, I know I'm going to have people here saying that I'm going to be defending Kavanaugh in this situation. And that's hypothetically correct or technically correct, I guess you could say it. Because I generally, when somebody comes to me and say that they have been raped, assaulted, or anything like that, I will generally believe them. I will believe them until the evidence points to another conclusion. Because there's too often in this, since the Me Too movement, the hashtag Me Too movement, since political correctness has become the norm, which it shouldn't be, we have gotten too lackadaisical in our demand for evidence in situations that can destroy somebody's life. I just read a story this morning about Brian Banks, who finally is getting released from, and it might have been one that I shared last year or something like that. I don't remember where I saw it, but Brian Banks got released from prison after being in there for 6 years on a false rape accusation. That's destroyed his life. He was an up-and-coming football player. He could have made it to the NFL possibly. Any other things. He could have gotten his degree and gone off to become a successful businessman. All sorts of things could have happened for this man that were now came crashing down because he was in prison for 6 years on a false charge. How is that fair? The far left, the liberal left, the SJWs, they claim that they want equality, but only on their terms. And that equality only extends to the point where they get what they want, and then it's time to go to the next step further, and the next group gets taken down a peg. Yesterday I heard about a Mike.com reporter who is a cis white male who's an ally after he's helped them take down so many other predators. He's now getting attacked by his coworkers and female partners, not partners, but friends and stuff. All because he's helped them take down everybody else. Now it's time to take him down a peg because he's now the successful white YouTuber and whatnot. It's just disgusting. It is annoying to see that these people are allowed to make these accusations, whether in a court of law or in a congressional hearing, or Senate hearing, committee hearing, and not get punished for it. Why? Why are they not getting punished for making false accusations against somebody, especially ones that can damage somebody's career and reputation? All it would take is for somebody to say that I did something inappropriate to them. And then I can get my career ruined, which isn't much of one. I can get my job, get kicked out of my job. I could be basically not hireable, even if there's no proof that I actually did anything, even if it never goes to trial, because the court of public opinion rules all. And this is bullshit. Sorry for the language, but this is fucking bullshit. To accuse somebody of doing a malicious act such as rape or physical abuse, you need to have certain that your ducks are in a row that this actually happened. Well, by waiting 30 years, over 30 years, what is it? They're now saying it was summer of 82. So summer of 82, that is now 36 years ago. Now I understand Maryland doesn't have a statute of limitations on these types of cases. That's fine. But where's the evidence at? Oh, that's right. No police reports were filed. No rape kit was given. None of this. And people will tell me it was a different time, Jay. You have to understand that it was a different time. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I can look through history and see the differences in cultures. I can see the differences between my myself and my parents. I can even see the little differences between myself and my older sister, who's only older than me by about 8 years. Um, got my younger sister and people younger than her. I can see the differences between me and them. It doesn't mean that just because socially we did things differently back then, if you were attacked, you should have went to the police. Should have filed a rape kit, should have went to the doctors, went to the hospital, done all this stuff. They were collecting DNA back then. So I mean, it is what it is. My biggest issue though is not that this is a political issue by the Democrats and the Republicans point counterpoint type of situation. My issue is the inconsistencies in what she is saying, in what Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has been saying. I want to believe her. I want to accept that what she says has happened. The problem is that her story falls apart under the tiniest bit of scrutiny. The scientific method isn't even being applied here, and yet the bare minimum of it is, come up with an idea, test the idea, evaluate the data and the results, go back and reevaluate your hypothesis. You're presenting a story that Kavanaugh raped you or physically assaulted you. We are now going through the hearing process and your story is falling apart. So now we have to reevaluate. Is your story accurate? Is your story the truth? I'm not going to sit here and say Kavanaugh did or did not do those things because we have no proof. We have a he said, she said conversation or event here. He said, she said event where she is saying she was assaulted. He's saying he wasn't. We've got reports of him saying that he wasn't that much of a drinker. We've got friends of his in college that were saying he was a heavy drinker. Okay, so both are lying under oath, supposedly. That doesn't mean I have to trust either one of them or their opinions. But what I can trust are people who are quote unquote professionals. And I'm not going with the whole the logical fallacy of appeal to authority here. What I'm doing is I'm taking the authorities' information that they have, reading through it myself, and trying to understand what they're saying. If I have a question, I will raise it. But one of those is the prosecutor that the Republican senators hired to ask their questions of Dr. Ford, because a bunch of old white guys asking a woman a question nowadays about any of this stuff would be seen as bullying her. So, but I got a hold of the memorandum that she sent out to the I got the memorandum that she had sent out to the Republican senators after she completed her review of the 9 hours of of testimony. I know no other people have done this. Stefan Molyneux, other YouTubers have done it, but I think it bears emphasis here. that Rachel Mitchell, the prosecutor, asking the questions for the Republicans of her, has 2 points that she wants to emphasize. That this memorandum is her own independent assessment of Dr. Ford's allegations based upon her independent review of the evidence in her nearly 25 years as a prosecutor in sex-related and other crimes in Arizona. And that the Senate confirmation hearing is not a trial, especially not a prosecution. The chairman has made his statement here, right here. You can read it. That is how I approach my job. There is no clear standard of proof for allegations made during the Senate confirmation process, but in the world in which I work is the legal world, not the political world. Thus, I can only provide my assessment of Dr. Ford's allegations in a legal context. So before you jump down the throat of she's a Republican, she's a conservative, all that stuff, understand that she's not trying to approach this from a political bias. She's trying to approach it from her professional opinion, which is, would I be able to prosecute this based upon the evidence? Now, I know there's a report out there that's from a former coworker of hers, that's the prosecutor's coworker, that says that she would go to trial over less or etc. But here's what she's saying in her assessment. In a legal context, here's my bottom line. A he said, she said case is incredibly difficult to prove, but this case is even weaker than that. Dr. Ford identified other witnesses to the event, and those witnesses have either refuted her allegations or failed to corroborate them. For the reasons discussed below, I do not think that a reasonable prosecutor would bring this case based upon the evidence before the committee, nor do I believe that the evidence is sufficient to satisfy the preponderance of evidence standard. Meaning that just because she said it happened doesn't mean it did happen, and therefore we cannot justifiably prosecute this. I don't see an issue with this at all, with her opinion on this. Dr. Ford has not offered a consistent account of when the alleged assault happened, and she goes through her bullet points. I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically she said it happened in the mid-'80s, then early '80s, summer of early '80s, summer of '82. This is when we finally get to a specific season and year. The article on September 16th also reported that notes from an individual therapy session in 2013 showed her as describing the assault occurring in her late teens, but she told the Post-it committee that it was when she was 15. While it is common for victims to be uncertain about dates, Dr. Ford has failed to explain how she was suddenly able to narrow down the time frame to a particular season in a particular year. That right there, I also happen to understand from, again, the few psychology courses I've taken and my experience talking with people that have been victims and have either repressed memories or have just not dealt with them. So, with that, we have to take it as her story isn't exactly what it's made up to be. It's not saying, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying that her story is not consistent, and that is why I'm not believing her story. Consistency is the key in any story that's being told, whether it's a work of fiction, whether it's a nonfiction, true crime, whatever. Consistency has to be the key. Next point is that Dr. Ford had struggled to identify Judge Kavanaugh as the assailant by name. No name given in 2012, no name given in 2013. Her husband claims to recall that she identified Kavanaugh by name in 2012. At that point, Judge Kavanaugh's name was widely reported in the press as a potential Supreme Court nominee if Governor Romney won the election. In the event that it took Dr. Ford over 30 years to name her assailant, delayed disclosure of abuse is common, so this is not dispositive. Again, sometimes these things are repressed, or the person just doesn't deal with them. And that's fine. But if she If she's going through marriage therapy and none of the notes for her session show that she gave a name, but her husband claims in his own affidavit that she did say it in 2012, shouldn't we be asking for his side of the therapy notes to corroborate that claim? When speaking with her husband, Dr. Ford changed her description of the incident to become less specific. Dr. Ford testified that she told her husband about the sexual assault before they were married, but she told the Washington Post that she informed her husband that she was the victim of physical abuse at the beginning of their marriage. Two totally different assaults, yes, both are physical, but they are two totally different things. She has testified that both times she was referring to the same incident, and it is possible that she could have viewed it as sexual assault back then, but called it physical abuse because she didn't want to scare him away. It could be that she did tell him that it was sexual assault and that she told the Washington Post the wrong thing. Quite possible. And that is okay. It's another inconsistency, but it's not one that I'm holding my hat to that it's making me convinced that her story isn't as truthful as she wants it to be. That it's not as damning as she would want it to be. Dr. Ford has no memory of key details of the night in question, details that could help corroborate her account. She doesn't remember who invited her to the party or how she heard about it. She doesn't remember how she got there. She doesn't remember how she got home. She doesn't remember the house where it took place or where the house was located specifically. But perhaps most importantly, she does not remember how she got from the party back to her house. Her inability to remember this detail raises significant questions. And I agree. The party took place near the Columbia Country Club. The club is more than 7 miles away from her childhood home as the crow flies, i.e., straight line distance. And she testified that it was about a 20-minute drive from her childhood home. She also agrees for the first time in her testimony that she was driven somewhere that night, either to the party or from the party or both. You have to understand that she is not the you have to understand that these instances are not the most damning. They're not the most um, damaging to her story, but they are very suspicious. You go to a party with your friend and you're supposedly assaulted. I think you would leave with that friend because you wouldn't want them to be subjected to it either, whether male or female. You would want them to help you get out of there. You'd want to find a way home. If you walked, 20-minute drive, so that's probably what, an hour walk, if not a little bit longer, 75-minute walk. You would remember walking that far that long. You would remember if somebody picked you up on the side of the road and took you home. You would remember going to a payphone. Yes, those existed back then because we didn't have the prevalence of cell phones. The point I'm making is you read through this, it's 9 pages, is that the consistency in her story is not there. The consistency doesn't hold up. She's not providing a full account. And then just yesterday, I think it was yesterday or Tuesday, we had the letter from an ex-boyfriend show up with the Senate committee that says that she never talked about it then. Okay. Again, repressed memories, that's fine. Uh, she claims that she's afraid of flying, but she flew to get there and flies on her vacations. People overcome their fears all the time. That's fine. But the fact that she cheated on the man while she was dating from 92 to 98, roughly that time frame, while she was in Hawaii, lied about it to him, didn't tell him till he didn't find out about it till she got back from Hawaii to California. They had a joint credit card, which he was the primary card holder, took her off of it. She still charged the card. And I'm not believing him wholly because, again, he's not coming forward face to face to testify this. He's doing it basically in front of a lawyer and probably a judge wherever he's at. And having it sent off to the Senate. That's my problem with his side of that, sort of the ex-boyfriends. If you are going to, and this is where I'm kinda getting the point and counterpoint here, is if you're going to hide behind anonymity because of fear of reprisal and you don't wish Dr. Ford any ill will, well, guess what? You're causing ill will by coming out with this letter. You're causing this as it is. The inconsistencies in her story, the fact that she is not getting any of her witnesses to corroborate her, tells me that this probably did not happen the way she remembered it. It's possible that she was assaulted and at a different party that very same year, that very same summer. She doesn't remember who the person was directly. She has a vague understanding of who the image in her mind that she creates. And when Kavanaugh's name was announced in 2012 as a potential Supreme Court nominee by Mitt Romney's camp, guess what? He looks somewhat like the image in her mind. That's who raped her. I'm not saying that he's not it's not possible that he did or did not rape her, because I don't know. I wasn't there. None of us were there. Those that were there don't back up her story. Yes, some of them are her friends, some of them are his friends. The fact that all sides are saying, "No, this didn't happen," tells me it didn't happen in my gathering of the evidence. If something evidentially comes out that supports her story that is stronger than this he said, she said stuff, I will fully back her and fully not want him as a Supreme Court justice. And if he's on the Supreme Court at that point, I would hope that he would have the cojones to step down. But the problem is, we have to understand that there is no direct evidence that we are given other than what she has supplied to the Post and various newspapers. We also don't have any evidence other than her testimony. What are we going to do? You know what I'm saying? What are we going to believe? Now, I know that I have friends and family that have been victims of various assaults and whatnot. And I do not mean to belittle them here. I do not mean to cause them more fear or having to relive moments of their past that they don't want to. That that's their that's for them to decide if they wanted to watch this or not. But my point is, just because you call rape, just because you call assault, doesn't mean that it happened the way you think it did. Thanks, Jared, just for popping in here. I'm just about to end too. Um, the point the point is that if you are a friend of mine, whether in real life or here on the internet, and you have had an emotional instance where you have been assaulted, molested, or anything like that, this isn't geared towards you. This isn't geared to say this never happened to you. My point is that that Dr. Ford is playing with fire by accusing somebody that she doesn't know did or did not do it. It's of my opinion that she was, based on what she's saying, she probably was assaulted, just not by Brett Kavanaugh. There's probably some other party at some point in her childhood, teens, either early teens or late teens, and she has a vague image of the man in her mind who happens to somewhat look like Kavanaugh. What you know, it's not hard for somebody to jump on that and say that's who it was. So just ask you guys to be open-minded about this. Don't let when it comes to these types of situations, don't let your politics cloud your judgment. Don't let your personal biases cloud your judgment. We don't have all the facts. We don't have all the information. We cannot make a very educated guess. I am only making this guess based on my experience, what the reports have told me from the testimony, and what I can read in the body language of what I watched of her testimony after the fact. I went back and watched the 9 hours of it. It was hard. But I want you to understand. I just need you folks to understand. This is not an attack of survivors. This is not a defense of actual rapists. To call Kavanaugh a rapist shows me that you are ill-informed of the situation. To call Dr. Ford a survivor of Kavanaugh's rape also means you're ill-informed. You don't know the facts, just like I don't know all the facts. I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt that it did happen, just not the way that she's saying it happened. So, with that, I'm going to end today. Sorry it's been so long that I've done one of these, but I have had a bit of a school schedule and some personal matters to tend to. So hopefully I'll be more consistent about this and coming back on Saturdays like I used to. So have a wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend and check out Jared Buto's channel. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. Jared Buto's channel for the Veterans Weekly this Friday. And check out Side Strikes Movie Night on Friday nights. Take care.